You're listening to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast with Jody Livingston and Chris Trent, episode number 69.
And I'll be doing whatever Snow does in summer.
Welcome to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast, helping you survive and thrive in youth ministry. And now, your hosts, Jody Livingston and Chris Trent.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the show today. Thanks for tuning in and listening wherever you are and wherever this finds you. Thanks for making this podcast today a part of your day. If it's your first time checking out the show, welcome. We are glad you are here. And if it's not your first time and you're a returning listener, part of the Longer Haul community, well, welcome on back. Thanks for still listening. If you enjoyed the show, finding it helpful, finding it useful, or nothing better to listen to, and you think somebody else could benefit, we would love for you to share that with somebody in youth ministry. And especially make sure that you subscribe to the show so that you get that each and every week as it comes out. So you can do that whether it's on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, in your favorite podcast player, or even if you're checking out the show on Spotify, wherever you find it, make sure you do that.
Yeah, man. So what's up, Jody? You good?
I'm good, man. Surviving.
Yeah, so this guy that did all that awesome intro stuff, that's Jody Livingston. I'm Chris Trent. And we are a couple of youth pastors in the Atlanta area. We don't work together. We're across town from each other, but we've been friends for a little while now. And we just are doing what you do, man. We're trying to love teenagers and point them to Jesus. And both have been doing it for a little while now. And that's why we do this podcast.
Indeed. You can find us both on social media. All around the interwebs. Jody Livingston, Chris Trent, the Longer Haul over on the Facebook, and all of that good stuff. All the links and resources that we mentioned today in this podcast episode, you can find on the show notes page, which is at thelongerhaul.com/episode 069. That's thelongerhaul.com/episode 069. Man, summer, for us at least here, summer's over.
Summer's over for us as well. School started today here in Cobb County. And
August 1st.
And as a result of that, I think we ought to do some shout outs to all of the amazing youth pastors that survived summer. Now, I know a couple of y'all may be listening. You're still doing the summer thing. You still got a little time left, maybe a week or two left or whatever. But for everybody who survived, and especially, I love the one you mentioned earlier, Jody. Shout out to all the people.
Slept on a foam mattress or an air mattress?
Slept on an air mattress or a foam. I did both. Just for the record, I did that as well. Yeah, man. I think the hardest thing about the Longer Haul in youth ministry is sleeping like in bunk bed type rooms or on air mattresses nowadays, man. It's like, bleh.
The good thing is that air mattresses have come a long way in the last 20 years.
They have, and I've got a double decker that's pretty swank there, bro.
Thanks, Skippy. I upgraded a few years ago. I thought this camping pad here.
Here's a question for you, Jody. Are you a sleeping bag or a sheets and a blanket guy? And I don't know that. I don't know the answer.
Depends.
For you.
Depends.
What do you mean it depends?
Well, if I'm at camp, I just sleeping bag's easier.
Not me.
Mission trip depends. On a mission trip, I end up in a hammock a lot for whatever reason.
Really?
Yeah. Not the last few years, but
always for a while now, for years now, I am a sheets and comforter. I found this inexpensive camouflage comfort at Target on sale, and it rolls up smaller than a sleeping bag.
See, I kind of expected you as a middle school pastor to have like Star Wars sheets or something.
You know, I would. But I'm telling you, dude, it's just for me, the sleeping bag thing. I just need a little more. I need a little taste of home every night. And so I go ahead and bring sheets and a blanket. That's a little tip for all you listeners out there if you want to do this thing long term.
Yeah.
So,
For me, it's a space thing. I've got a really nice little travel sack sleeping bag. It's kind of small, full.
Yeah.
And if it opens up, it's comfortable, lightweight. It's perfect. It's
Yeah,
great.
tracking me. Yeah.
But it took me a while to find it.
Little funny thing we do, if you ever have a pillow, if you ever have a kid forget their pillow and you got to buy them a pillow, one of our guys started this tradition maybe like 10 years ago. And if you ever have to buy a kid a pillow on a trip like that, you buy a pillow, but you buy the most. And so especially if it's for like a dude, like you buy like a My Little Pony pillowcase, and make it as embarrassing as possible. And I've got a former guy that worked with me for a while. He still carries his go-to pillow on every youth trip is a Hannah Montana pillow.
Nice.
So anyway, hey man, we have a sponsor. We have a sponsor. We need to talk about our sponsor because I love these folks. They have a great sponsor. So YM360, that stands for Youth Ministry 360. Youth Ministry 360, man. Those guys are out of Birmingham, and guys and gals. And I just want to say, man, first of all, that big time appreciate their support, helping us, keep this thing going. But they do a ton of stuff, curriculum. They do one speaking conference thing every year, a preaching conference thing they do. They do a great, they've got a game thing they do as well. But for me, what's hitting close to home right now, I just got back from summer camp a couple weeks ago. And I went to Generate, which is their camp. And I can just tell you from experience, that if you are now ending summer and you are looking to next summer and you are considering a different camp, I highly recommend considering Generate is what they call their camp through YM360. It's phenomenal. We had a great experience. The customer service they give is just unbelievable. The team of people that they bring in, Roger Davis leads that part of that. And man, it's super good. And I do recommend jumping on pretty early. They've got some great deep discounts for registering way in advance, and paying some deposits and stuff. So you can go to ym360.com and you can link and find their camp page, no problem. But what a great camp experience. So good time.
Yeah, and Roger actually was on the podcast back in episode 55.
Yeah, talking about how to get ready for camp. Yeah, that's before we even knew that they were going to sponsor.
Episode 55.
Yeah.
I highly encourage you to do that just to hear his heart behind that. He talks a lot about that.
It's just good stuff, man. Highly recommend it. So appreciate those guys.
Head over to ym360.com. Check out all their curriculum, student devotionals, Disciple Now stuff, youth leader development, summer camp stuff. Be sure to use the promo code LONGERHAUL and save yourself 20% there. And
on all the curriculum and stuff, not on camp.
Not on camp.
That don't apply to camp.
If I can say
that'd be amazing. That'd be the best deal ever.
So, so check out those guys. We love and appreciate those guys so much. Quality stuff there. And just a huge heart for students and student pastors. So today's topic, extremely relevant right now. So if you're listening as this episode releases on August 2nd, then you'll find this hopefully very helpful, very relevant.
Yeah, hopefully so. Transitioning from summer youth ministry to you ministry. A little play on words there, but I think it'll make sense once we jump in.
Yeah, super important. So you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, let's jump in.
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
So, man, transitioning out of summer is tough. Like, it's hard.
Yeah. And, the idea for this, not like it's a new idea really or anything, but I actually wrote an article. There's a guy that does Stoked on Youth Ministry. Great little website. We'll link to the article. I wrote an article for him a couple summers ago.
Yeah.
On this particular topic. And And it came out of my own heart of, man, I don't know about you, Jody, and I'm asking, but so often at the end of the summer, like I'm excited and I'm super pumped about everything that's been going on, but I'm also just worn slap out
Yeah.
in some ways. And often spiritually, I'm just super struggling. And that's just being super transparent there. But I feel like I'm at the end of my ropes with that.
No, I think everybody feels that way. And what makes that hard too is like, I remember we were in a Youth Pastor Network meeting here a couple of years ago in May, right at the end of the year. And somebody, I don't even remember who it was, one of the guys here locally brought up the fact that I keep sitting here thinking, man, I'm just so tired. And then I remember, oh, it's May. Like we've been going the grind of the school year all year. That's why I'm tired. But next month starts summer.
Yeah. Right. Here comes summer.
And, so I think the nice thing is the change of pace is helpful, but I don't know, for me, my environment right now, summer's like pouring gasoline on a fire, man. I mean, we go crazy busy in the summer.
Yeah. And I know that everybody listening may not have that kind of summer,
Sure,
but I feel like most youth ministries, they ramp up in the summertime, and it can be a real challenge. And I don't know that everybody really understands that either. I don't know that all of necessarily the folks in your church understand that and appreciate that. When I wrote the article, I pulled out a quote, Jody, from when I was ordained. Gosh, man, it's been 20 something years ago, but a youth pastor spoke at my ordination, and I'm not in the habit of reading things on the podcast, because it can sound a little boring, but I want to read his quote to you because he said, this kind of sums up the summer to me. He said, "You're going to spend a week at camp with 50 or 60 kids, emotionally drained and totally zapped from giving everything you have to crisis after crisis after crisis. It's going to be incredible. You're going to sit outside a room 3 or 4 nights, making sure guys don't sneak out or do any raids or anything like that. No sleep for a solid week. And on the way home, you'll have 2 flat tires and the bus will break down. And God's call is a call to holiness, because this is when the rubber meets the road, brother. And of course, Wendy's my wife. He said, you and Wendy you're going to step off that bus. And one of the parents is going to say, Wendy, Chris, how was the vacation?" And I just remember thinking, wait, what? That makes sense to me. But, honestly, there is a little bit of that, I think, at times where, especially you go off to a camp type setting and the kids come back all super jazzed and excited and loving everything. And they think that maybe you've got the same. And look, there are blessings tied to it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Big time. But in the midst of that, also, you've just poured into people so much that you're just spent, And so even though you're wise enough maybe to be thankful for the blessing of God allowing you to experience some of that stuff, you're also just like, man, I am so tired. Because all I've done is give, it feels like. And I don't mean that in a whining kind of way. I just mean that in a, whew, man, it's hard.
Yeah, and I think we do have to be careful, because I think sometimes that exhaustion, that being tired, can easily bleed into, like, I don't know how to say it, maybe like a victim kind of like, thing. And I don't. That's not what we're saying. So yeah. I hope people hear our heart. And
the danger, though, is it could bleed into other stuff as well, though, Jody. It could bleed into sin, and it could bleed into your walk with Christ, just not being what it should be. And I think that's where, and so I tell you, man, honestly, for me, years back, I started, after you do this a while, you start to get a feel of your seasons, you start to get a feel of what that, what those reps feel like, and there was some time in the midst of that I started being more sensitive to, like, man, I need to really recharge right now. I really need to get refocused on this. And I just started doing some intentional stuff in my life, to kind of make that happen. And I think at the time it probably came out of like some of the things I was reading at the time as well, like Richard Foster's Celebration of Discipline and some of those type things, just realizing that. You read that? You've read that.
Oh yeah. Have you had hang on, let me grab this. Have you read David Mathis, Habits of Grace?
I've not.
Oh, man.
Good.
Yeah, it's so good. It's similar. I think it's kind of birthed out of that same kind of thought and vein of around the spiritual disciplines, but he kind of approaches it. It's kind of refreshing. Habits of Grace.
Yeah. Well, man, when I wrote the article, I just wrote, I've got like, again, you and I typically, our flow here, typically, I've got a list here, some things, and we can kind of bounce back and forth if that's cool. And just some things to think about that might help you kind of recharge for the summer. So what do you think?
Let's go. Let's do it.
Number one's a good one. And it's beneficial. You ready?
Yeah.
Simply go on a date with your significant other. Like, so if you're married or maybe have a girlfriend, fiance. Now, if you're not married, fiance, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be, you're like my summer's over and I'm all alone.
Next, don't skip it. There's more stuff coming.
Yeah. But that said, speaking to the married folks or folks maybe that have, the significant others, summers on relationships can be hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just going. And what's crazy is Wendy and I, we're looking at each other. We've actually been around each other a lot this summer because she goes on a lot of the trips. But that said, our marriage it typically feels a little strained by the end of the summer because you're living out of your suitcase so much and you're going so much. And even though you're around each other, there's so much stress tied to that and whatever, So just simply, just taking a moment to be intentional about dating each other, I think will help kind of refocus some things there.
Yeah, and I don't think it has to be anything crazy or expensive or, just some time to get away and not talk about summer or.
Shoot, man, I'd be sad. You know what I'd be satisfied? You know what I'd be satisfied with?
A nap.
Nope. Think dinner.
Oh yeah. Well, you're talking about jalapeno?
Baby.
Jalapeno ranch.
Jalapeno ranch.
Yeah,
how are they not sponsoring us? Dude, I'd be down with some Chewies. You know what I'm saying? So,
dude, for real.
Anyway,
if you go 4 to 7 free nacho bar, it's the best.
I'm saying. Okay. So yeah, that's one idea. Go on a date with your significant other. That'll help kind of.
I think that's good.
Things.
And look, the reality is, and I think you and I, where you and I are right now, like our wives are extremely involved in our ministry and are able to be very involved. But that hasn't always been the case. When my kids were younger, my wife wasn't able to. So summers were busy, but we were apart a lot. Or when we had one kid, like it was Sarah and I and the mascot, my oldest, who was the youth.
Yeah, totally.
And so even though you just got to find what that looks like, and it may be like,
and honestly, and when I wrote that, Jody, you're right. I'm glad you're saying that because when I wrote this article, I wrote this just a couple years ago, and I was at a stage where my kids could even stay at home alone by themselves at that point. But it may be a thing, and my kids were also, when I wrote this, they were involved in my youth ministry.
Yeah.
Right. So part of what that may be, I think you're dead on, man. Like this may mean that you need to do a little small getaway. Not necessarily, it doesn't even have to be overnight, but an intentional family moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think your kids need to see you too. And
yeah, man,
you need to see your kids and look, let's be honest and transparent. You're tired. And maybe that's not the first thing that you're wanting to pour into but you should. Yeah. And for us, we've got 3 kids in our youth. 3 of my 4 now are in my youth ministry. And so, we're together a lot, but getting away and do something fun. I mean, we had some movie passes or something somebody gave us and, just grabbing a movie, but there's been times where it was, hey, we're going to go rent a Red Box or, pop some popcorn, camp out. When the kids were younger, we're building forts and doing whatever.
Be intentional.
Just fun. It doesn't have to be away. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it does need to be intentional. So I like it.
No doubt. Yeah, so transitioning from summer youth ministry to you ministry, here's another one for you. Take a work day for soul care. Now that sounds real touchy-feely, I know. Forgive me. But here's what I mean. I mean, really take one of your work days and carve it out to try spend a day at just Starbucks or the local coffee shop and try not to do so much administrative type, calendar type, planning type, email type, but take a day, stay off the social media, and just spend some time listening to some good music, spending time in the Word, reading a good book, and just recharging, man. Just take a day for soul care. Spend some time in prayer. And again, just try to limit your email and connectivity that day as much as you can, just for the purpose of just kind of refocusing yourself.
How would you say, like, what would that look like for somebody who's bivocational?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a challenge for sure. But bivocational, even if if you are putting in any office hours at all, to try to even carve out some of those office hours. So for me, we would have the luxury of maybe making that a whole day.
Yeah.
But for them, it might be part of a day, kind of thing. Again, it's the intentionality behind it, though. It's the discipline part of that. So if it's 2 hours or 7 hours, I think it's the intentionality of I'm stopping, I'm going and setting somewhere different out of my office, out of my home for the purpose of soul care, of spending time in the Word, praying, and just really,
That's
just kind of recharging there.
I think for me, for a long time, I mean, I was bivocational for a long time, and a lot of times for me, that was my lunch break. Instead of whatever I would normally do, I would just sometimes it was simple as just go sit in my car, and just turn on some music and just kind of focus in on the Lord and really take that time to just kind of be refreshed a little.
It's just being intentional.
Yep.
Get quiet. Get off that social media for a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And just So yeah.
I like it.
Hey, you've got a couple too. You want to throw one in?
Yeah, I've got one. And so here's the thing on this first one that I want to throw out. This is one I think when you were talking about earlier, like recognizing kind of the rhythms, right, in the year and in those seasons. And I think for me, this is one.
Except for the word, I could not come up with the word rhythms. Thank you for finally saying it. Dang it!
That's why we're here, man.
You're so much smarter than I am.
But it's what we're here for, man.
Yeah.
I think I realized a while ago, right, several years ago, that if I didn't start early, it wouldn't happen. And I had this conversation even with our children's pastor last week because we were sitting here saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe the school year's here." And so mine is plan your fall early. So the last thing I want to do when I get back from summer is sit down and start planning fall events, right? Or putting a whole lot into that. So I have found for me that one of the most helpful things I do is making sure that before summer starts, that my fall events are planned, at least for the first couple months. Now, I generally, because I like to have things planned out, we'll do like the whole full year. Even though we don't necessarily promote the full year at one time, we kind of do seasons. But I just can't come off the summer and get excited about planning events. And
I can't either, dude. I don't have the energy for it. And I don't think it's because I'm older now. I think it's just because my tank is empty.
Yeah. And if I do plan it, it's going to suck. Like it's not going to be good. So for me, making sure that, okay, before summer kicks in, I sit down and I make sure that at least the first couple months, I've got stuff planned on the calendar.
Okay, so give me a solution here. So now if I'm listening right now, I'm going, okay, that would have been information
Yeah. So here's what I'm telling you
useful
to do.
yesterday,
Take-
right? Because everybody,
so-
we're already done with summer.
Yeah. So take out your phone right now.
You're stressing us all out, Jody.
And
Give us some
take out
help.
your phone right now and open your calendar to May of 2019 next year.
And to go ahead and start getting ready.
Put it on the calendar. Today, like pick a day, put it on the calendar. That's the day you'll plan for the fall. I mean, it doesn't take long, right? I mean, you can plan events, nothing, but do it in May. You're not going to want to do it in May either because you're going to look ahead at all the things coming in the summer that you're going to be freaking out about. But if you don't do it, if you don't do it, then right now you're listening and you're like, oh, crap. The last thing I want to do is go bowling, or whatever.
I will tell you this as a guy who kind of, organization, getting organized. I mean, that's administratively, that's a spiritual gift for me or whatever. I do think one solution to that also could be, Jody, if you are listening and you're like, man, I'm resonating with this. I need to do this. I need to take some time, but I haven't really planned yet. And I've got this list. I would say this one way to get there though, would be to do a hard cram session of work.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like dig in and bust your butt one day, dig in deep, get your list, get your plan in place so that you've got a system and you know when you're going to be doing whatever. You've kind of mapped out when you're going to do what, and then give yourself that break.
Yeah, I agree.
And so if you don't have a plan yet, that might be a solution.
We talked about like getting organized. We went back. I mean, we covered that. I don't remember what episode that was. I should have that pulled up in front of me. But we talked about kind of tips for getting organized in youth ministry. Episode 56. Here's what I found that's really helpful for me when it comes to like what you're talking about. Because there are moments, right? Whether it's in May or whether it's now, where you just sit down, you have to knock out some stuff, right? Part of it for me is turning off my notifications, putting everything away. I really don't enjoy Facebook anyway, but I've got a thing that blocks the news feed so I don't get on there and start reading a bunch of stuff or watching a bunch of weird videos of people's pets doing stupid things. Just kind of block all that out. For me, there's a couple things. I've just found a really good, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say ritual, but that sounds like a cult. But kind of a habit, a pattern for me to when I'm going to get work.
A rhythm. A rhythm.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go with rhythm. That's not really what I'm looking for. So for example, I've got an app on my phone and I've got it actually on my computer, called Coffeetivity, which is like background noise. So it's like coffee shop noise. And so you turn that on and then you play some music under it. And so I'll do that, throw on some headphones, put away any distractions, and I can sit down and really kind of knock out some work. But you can't sit down and do a cram session and knock out work if you're not being intentional to like remove distractions from that,
Yeah, no doubt.
And you'd be surprised if you just sit down and knock it. And another thing I use, sometimes I've got an app called Concentrate, I think. And it's just a timer basically. So you set, I want to work for this long, and then it's going to tell you, hey, get up and walk around for this long, and then come back and work for this long. I've just found things like that, or my standing desk actually is extremely helpful when I'm really having to get a lot done.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, all hope is not lost. But I would still say, take out your phone now or whatever your calendar is and set that for next year so you don't forget.
Yeah, no, I'm tracking me.
That's good.
Yeah.
I got one more. And you kind of alluded to this, so I want to throw this out now. Fight to stay disciplined, like in your spiritual disciplines. Because, man, when you get tired, that's when you're vulnerable for sure.
Man, big time.
And that's when you just start getting lazy. You're not in the Word as much, and that's when burnout really starts to set in. And you got to remind yourself that, man, rest comes from Jesus, and the Word is what you need to replenish and to refuel and to recharge and to.
I mean, just this week, Jody, when I got back, man, I had to I mean, Sunday night, I just had to, because we did camp and then I did vacation. And that's why, didn't get an episode last week or whatever. But I had to say to myself, dude, I need to set my clock. I need to make myself get up tomorrow morning and get back in my discipline of me getting in the Word before I go to work. And I had, it's just an intentionality. I mean, it's just part of the deal. You're right, man.
Well, and I think part of the reason that that's important is even kind of like what you're saying, because the pace and the rhythm, that's going to be the key word, of summer is so different than the pace and the rhythm of the school year, that a lot of times, if you've got a pretty regular routine for your spiritual discipline wise, it's really hard in the summer sometimes to keep that same routine. So it looks different, right?
Oh yeah, big time.
So when you got to fight for your
well, I mean, like at summer camp, it's hard to have your normal. You're fighting for, and I'll even say this. This is going to be controversial, maybe, I don't know, but I mean, sometimes the healthiest thing you could do spiritually is to stay in bed an extra 30 minutes at camp and get a little extra sleep. Than to get up and make yourself, whatever it does. I say that I need to be careful there. Different people get fed different ways, so I need to give people the freedom there. But
you rest, right? Rest is a huge part of that. So whatever that looks like, maybe you're stealing away. Whatever. Now you don't need to do it when your other people are supposed to be. And we've had that conversation. Like when you're in charge, you're not allowed to be tired, right? You need to be first one up and last one to bed, and making sure the folks are doing what they're doing. But yeah, I think you're right. There's moments it just looks different. Like it just looks different.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think coming out of summer back into the school year, you just got to really be intentional to carve out
get those disciplines done. I like it.
Like
this I've got one that kind of ties into that. This is tied to discipline a little bit, and this may be a little bit of a Chris thing for me personally here. I feel like when I'm really in a good rhythm, when I'm in a good place with all of this, I'm also reading as well, and so I would say one thing I wrote down was just start a new book, do something fresh, grab a new book. And when I say a new book, I don't mean a leadership book. I mean something that's maybe a little bit more devotional encouragement, or spiritual based.
What really helps me is a fictional book.
Yeah, and that'd be great too. I mean, just something though that, again, get off the social, get out of the office, get away from kids.
Yeah,
settle your mind down and read and get, kind of deal. I just think that'd be huge. We don't need to spend a ton of time on that one, but yeah, start a new book might help you when it comes to transitioning from summer youth ministry to youth ministry. Now this one is pretty huge right here, though. I wanted to quickly get to this one because I want to take a moment and dig in here for a second, but I've got mind your input. Mind your input. Now, here's what's interesting. When I wrote this article a couple summers ago, guess what was about to happen in November?
There was a presidential race.
There was a presidential election, right? So at the time, though, so when I wrote the article, I was like, yeah. But here's the thing, though. I would say this is true, period. You get back from summer, you're worn out. Now, me personally, the way this impacts me is I just want to veg in front of the TV or listen to music or whatever. And if I'm being honest, sometimes I look at that and go, man, what all am I putting in? So in my soul, I'm just worn out. I'm empty, but then I'm not. And then all I'm doing is I'm eating junk food. You know what I'm saying? If I'm not careful. And so I think minding your input, considering some of the, just trying to dig in and listen to some music that, and look, this is not a rip or an argument against secular music or certain movies or whatever kind of thing. But that said, if you're just inputting stuff that's not edifying and it's not encouraging, that's going to not help you come out of that funk that you're in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think just minding your input, Philippians 4:6-9. Might be a good. Yeah.
So I have to tell you a really funny story real quick.
Get it?
When I was at Teen Valley Ranch, I think we talked about that. I spoke at Teen Valley Ranch for their camp this
Yeah.
summer. And the last night there, they bring everybody down, from camp, and they're kind of at this big bonfire thing, and having folks share from the week. It's just the whole camp there, right? And they have me kind of do like a closing kind of wrap up and final charge to everybody. And I'm sitting there around this campfire, and all I can think of is, like, when I was in youth group, the only time we ever had a bonfire was when we were burning secular music, right? And so I get up there, and I'm telling these kids, I'm like, this is so cool that we're here, right? And I said, I'm trying to explain to them, like, when I was in youth group, the only time we ever did this is when we'd throw a big bonfire, and then we'd throw our tapes or CDs of our secular music in a fire and burn them, right? And
Oh well.
so and some people listening now are like, what the heck are you talking about? They looked at me like I had three
I'm
heads.
imagining a whole bunch of kids throwing their cell phones into the fire.
They looked at me like I had three heads. Like, it may not, and it doesn't make any sense, right? And so there was this guy in my youth group. His name's Shannon Malone, and I remember we did this one night, and he's got AC/DC Back in Black, and he's got the CD there, and he's gonna throw it in the fire. I'm like, man, come on, dude, let me have that. Like, I'll just take it. Pastor Terry will never know. And and he's like, no, man, it's Pastor Terry's blah blah blah. And he's like, it's wicked, it's evil. So he throws this thing in the fire. Of course, it's plastic, right? So it's like all screeching and black smoke. And he's like, see, it's so evil. Like, dude,
Oh my god,
it's plastic, man. You should have just given it to me. What a waste of money. But as I'm telling this story to these kids at camp, and they're like, what? And all I knew to say was, like, that's why I believe in the sovereignty of God, because that happened and people still got saved. I don't even understand. So
yeah.
Anyway, we're not saying to do that. We're not saying
No, but I am saying just be honest about the input. Just be realistic about it, man. If all you're doing is putting just more and more junk in your mind, and just take a breath, and mind your input.
Yep.
I think it makes sense.
I agree.
A little practical thing you could do is just make a list of praises. If you're discouraged or you're struggling or you're worn out from the summer, or you look back at the summer with more disdain than excitement, you might just make a list of praises from the summer.
Yeah.
It's been a hard summer, especially. Maybe you've had some challenging parents, difficult students, things not going the way you thought they're going to go. Just take a moment and and I know this is real touchy feely sounding and real, like, motivational sounding, whatever, but honestly, just take a moment and go, okay, well, what's the good stuff? And maybe there's not anything. Maybe it's been a really, really hard summer. Hopefully there is, though. Hopefully there's a couple things where you could go, okay, yeah, well, that one kid was a knucklehead, but the other kid, I really feel like they made some progress.
Yeah.
With their walk with Christ.
That's good.
So that might be good. I've just got one more, and I think you've still got a good resource you're going to share, right?
I'm pumped.
But
You're going to be so proud. Such a good resource.
I cannot wait. So finally, for me, is just take a day off and do something you love.
Yeah.
And again, for those folks who are just not in a place where they can, you
can get away. You can get away.
I'm not trying to, cause grief for you, if you're just in a place where you can't. But if it's possible to take a day and just do something you love and not feel guilty about it, man. And maybe even disconnect from family on this one. Me, I'd go fishing, or work on some magic tricks, or
I ride my motorcycle.
Oh, dude, see, I want a motorcycle, Jody, so bad. But whatever it is you like to do, man, just take a break, go get after it, And again, just going back to that, get after a busy summer of youth ministry, doing something. And I want to be careful because it's not about you, do something for you, but just do something for you, to kind of help get your soul back in the right place, get your mindset right back in the right place there. I just think that would be huge, and
Well, and I think, I mean, Jesus models this, right? I mean, you see him over and over after heavy moments of ministry, kind of retreat
he gets
away.
away.
So for us to neglect that's dangerous.
Yeah, big time dangerous.
So,
So
okay, let me
huge.
ask this question.
Okay,
Maybe this is a bit of a loaded question. How would you suggest somebody's listening? They're exhausted from the summer, tired, right? Coming out of this thing, running on fumes. How do you have that conversation with like your senior pastor or your supervisor leadership if they don't recognize that? Like, how do you get them to see and understand that in a way that they will hear it and like receive it and not think, just with the expectation that this is just what you do. It's just your job. You're just supposed to keep doing it.
Yeah, Jody, I mean, I think that's a good question. The first thing that popped into my mind, Jody, when you asked that question was, I think you want to be careful not to think and not to allow yourself to think that you're the only one that worked hard.
Yeah.
This summer. I mean, if you've got a children's ministry person at your church, do VBS is a pain in the butt, I mean, so, I mean, just, and maybe your pastor, sometimes, not always, but sometimes pastors' schedules, they ramp down a little bit. But even then, if you go into that, the pastor's like, yeah, I've had a little bit of a break this summer, but the other, 10 months of my year are nuts. So I think just going into that with a humility, would that be the right word, Jody? Maybe,
Yeah, I think for sure.
like just with some humility of, yeah, I'm going into this, just kind of going, hey, I think also just kind of approaching it from an honest standpoint of, hey, I want to take some time off. The other part is, I would say this: do you even have to tell them why you're doing it in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, you may not,
because if you've got a vacation day or you've got comp time,
take it,
and you decide to take time off, you don't necessarily have to publicize. It's kind of like the old fasting thing. When you fast, you don't want everybody to know that you're fasting,
right?
There may be some wisdom in not making it a public thing, but rather just on your own taking time out, because you don't want to turn it into like this self-spiritual like thing where you're like, hey, I'm so spiritual that I'm taking a day for soul care,
Right.
No, that's not what it's about. It's about you doing it because you need to do it, and
no, I agree.
So,
well, and I hope what you're hearing as you're listening today is like the point of this is let's be intentional with the things that you can control. Do these things so that you can give your very best coming out of summer into the school year, and people don't see you exhausted, dragging in, tired, because that's not going to end well either. You've got to be able to walk in and give your best, and that's the goal. Hopefully, today is to help you do that. So that's good. I agree. I don't think you have to necessarily make a big deal out of it. I think if you do end up having to have that conversation, you need to do so humbly and, be able to submit to whatever that authority is and what they say of you. So it's good. Cool. Any last things? Do you have a resource related to this in mind? Because mine is totally unrelated, but I'm pretty excited about it.
No, I mean, other than the practical stuff that you would automatically think of, whether that be your journal, if you're a journal guy, or your favorite Bible or a Bible that holds some meaning to you, or your, that book that you want to grab, or that certain playlist, I mean, those really to me are the resources that I think, will help with this.
Yeah, I agree. Good stuff. All right. You ready for my resource? This is a really
is it your motorcycle?
It's a really abrupt switch. Okay, so you have continually mocked me, but I mean,
Jody, I don't know what you're talking about. I would never mock you, my friend.
Even shamed me over my inbox in my email.
Dude, your inbox is terrible. Listen.
Did you see?
That's not
My
berating.
inbox today. Did you see it?
Yeah, I sent you.
And what was
saw
it? Big nothing.
It was. I can't remember. It was low.
It was
like
nothing.
nothing. Yeah, but what is it today? That's the question.
Zero unread emails.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it didn't.
Because I'm not there. I'm sitting at. Ooh, I shouldn't have pulled this up.
It didn't even take me that long.
I got a good 20 right now. Yeeks. That stressed me. I should have done
20 doesn't stress me, but it's there. It's done. So here's what I did. My wife thinks this is crazy. Okay. I wanted to find a better email app, right? That would help me. Cause I was using the Gmail, just the basic Gmail app. It's good. It's okay, but it wasn't. I mean, I was still struggling, obviously, to keep up. So I found two. Okay. And so I downloaded them both, and I was using them both at the same time to make sure they worked, right? So one of them,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to throw both out as a resource, and I'm going to tell you what I like about both, and then I'm going to tell you the one that really helped me get to zero. One of them is called Edison. Okay,
I've heard of Edison actually.
Yeah, it was great. So what I like about Edison is that it kind of takes a lot of your emails and it sorts them. It has like this built-in almost like assistant thing. So it kind of sorts them into categories for you, which is really cool. You can snooze emails and stuff so they come back later. And it's really functional, really easy to use. You can, swipe to archive or snooze or whatever. So it's great. I like that one a lot. The other thing I like about Edison is that if you get an email that is like a newsletter, or like an email list, not that you would do this to the Longer Hauls email list, which you should subscribe to if you're not already by going to longerhaul.com and subscribing there to the list to get all those things that we send out that are amazing. But for others, it gives you an option at the top of those emails to click unsubscribe, and it will email them and tell them to unsubscribe for you. It's fantastic. So that's good. But the one that really changed everything for me is called Spark.
Yeah.
Oh,
I tried that app.
you didn't like it?
No, okay. Listen, it's not that I don't like
You
it.
don't like it?
I just didn't need it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I need it. Okay. So,
and I don't mean that. I know that sounds snooty, but I'm already.
You're that
Here's
guy.
the word again: rhythm. I'm already in an email rhythm.
Yeah, you got a system
that I didn't need, and it's working. And I do keep a low inbox, and so I did. It actually had stuff, but for somebody who's not in a good rhythm,
like me,
Jody Livingston,
like me. I am now.
I could see where it would be helpful, bro.
So Spark's great. So I have Spark on my phone. I have Spark on my computer. Right. What I really like about Spark is that it's got this really cool smart inbox feature that you can use or not. So you're not locked into this. And what it does is it sorts them kind of by unread emails that you've opened and seen, things that are pinned, newsletters. It kind of sorts them as they come in. And you can easily go through here by swiping right or left to a certain degree, like a longer swipe to the right archives, just a little bit of swipe leaves it unread. To the left would pin it or delete it. And so you can move through. And you can do these in large chunks, which is how I got to zero. So as I'm going through, I could look at emails and realize like, oh, I don't really need to. I mean, I was leaving things unread to come back to them, but that wasn't ever happening. And they were old and I never came back. So I could go through and clear those out pretty quickly. It's just really fun. And actually it's got a lot of features I'm not even using. And it's like, you can do it like as a group. So if you're trying to, like if you and I were working on an email to send out together, we could both come in and kind of edit and work on the email as you go through, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man.
But for me, smart inbox swipe stuff. So Edison was great. Spark, man, that was the one. And yeah, like
Well, I'm all about getting your email box in order. If you know, because if you're coming back after a crazy summer and you got a just super crazy full email inbox with all these, man, that could be super. That could not.
Well, and
help
that's what
you.
happened.
I'm telling you
That's
right
what
now.
happened is I already had a massive email, and
it was this morning that I finally dug out from under it all.
Yeah.
After being gone for a couple of weeks, and
well, summer ended, and
with
I was
vacation
like,
and with
it was
camp.
embarrassingly large,
Yeah.
and I thought I got to do
it
something
was
about this.
terrible.
I got to find something that's gonna help me.
Yeah, man. No, I'm tracking with you, bro.
Fantastic.
Big
Go
time.
check those out. I'll put a link for both of those in the show notes page, as well as all the other stuff that we mentioned in here. I think this is good practical stuff.
Yeah. Hey, friends, listen. If you're listening, and you are, because you can hear me talking. Hey, we care about you.
We do.
I care about you, and I love what we all get to do. And Jody and I have been doing it a little while, but we still have a lot to learn. But that said, I think part of the secret to this longevity that we strive for is that you've got to stay spiritually healthy.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't just keep doing it on your own. And after a busy summer, that is one of those times where you really just got to take a look in the mirror and go, man, where am I with all this?
Yeah. What
do I need to do? And it's me too. And it never changes. It's just always a battle, you know? And so if you're listening and you're just sitting there right now going, man, I am a little, just, it doesn't have to even be something we've said, but take it, pay attention to your heart, pay attention to your mind and what the Holy Spirit may be whispering to you. Not because of what I'm saying or what Jody is saying, but because of the fact that, you know, Jesus wants to have that close walk with you. And so figure out what works with you, for you, just to kind of reconnect, you know, and ultimately that will help you be a better youth pastor, because the best thing you can give your kids is Jesus.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah. Longevity doesn't happen by accident.
Nope.
And a lot of little things along the way that are done intentionally is what enables that to take place and to continue. And you may be sitting here at the end of a long summer and like Chris said, just exhausted and tired and, you know, not sure and doubting. And I just want to encourage you to don't quit. You know, I mean, you may be in a really crappy situation right now, but don't quit. Like, finish well, press on. You're making more of a difference and an impact than you'll ever know. And it's worth it. And it is a crazy pace that we run in the summer. And man, the school year comes and it doesn't get better or worse. It just changes. Right. And so we want you to care for yourself well. We want you we really want you to thrive in what you're doing. And so we believe in you. We're pulling for you. If you don't feel like anybody else is, know that we are. And so stay at it.
Yeah, man. Good times.
Hey, if you haven't already, jump over to Facebook and you can request to join the super secret podcast group. It's pretty fantastic.
And honestly, that's a great little place. You know, the great thing about our podcast group is it is a smaller group, and I think it is a place you could be a little vulnerable. You know, it is a place you could kind of share a prayer request or ask for some help or whatever. So yeah.
Indeed.
I like the big ones too. I'm not anti-big groups, but there's something to say about a smaller group.
Yep.
So
for sure. Be sure also to head over to ym360.com and check out all the goodies there.
ym360.
They got a bunch of good stuff there. Make sure to use the promo code Longer Haul. Save 20% off your next order, but not camp, as we stated earlier.
You could go check out this amazing book about longevity, and you could get 20% off.
Yeah.
Which means I would make like only 10 cents on the book instead.
What's the name of that book?
That would be Consider This, A Youth Pastor's Guide to Longevity.
Great book. So make sure you head over and check that out. Also, head over to the show notes page at thelongerhaul.com /episode 069. That's thelongerhaul.com/episode 069. Check out all of the links for the resources we mentioned here. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you get it every time a new episode drops. And I think that's it for today. Yeah.
That's it, my friend. Good times.
So until next time, we will see you in the next episode. Stay at it. Go get some rest. Sleep in a real mattress.
For reals.
We'll see you.
Thanks for listening to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast at www.thelongerhaul.com.